We've been doing movie nights for
years.
So Gen Xer and
a Gen Z. Random weird moments that the two of us have experienced, and there are a lot of those.
And he crashes them.
As you do.
It's like, I'm just sitting there and I'm like, where did this come from? Why are we singing?
I mean, you're not going to learn anything about the movies listening to us talk.
This is the Argo City Podcast. Film, conventions, and fan life with Maddie and Matthew. Okay, so we are back with
the movie Wheel of Boom!
And this week it's this week's kind of interesting because one of the reasons that we started doing a lot of these is because there were like movies that, you know, as a fangirl, you need to see. You need to understand fandom. So, and you don't necessarily know what all to seek out.
That's definitely true.
Literally, one of the reasons why I go to Cinema Wasteland twice a year is because they show films that I would never think to go seek out for myself. So this kind of falls, I think, in that same category.
Yeah.
Of stuff I just wouldn't have thought to go and find.
Yeah, as someone that has been watching anime for a while, this movie, Suzamae, which is what we watched, appeared on my radar the moment that it came out. And there were a couple reasons for that, like such as, because the thing that I always recognized was her walking through the door. And that, like I said, it was on my radar the second that this came out because this was a smash hit as soon as it released. Mm-hmm. Even before it had an English dub, like, I didn't think this had an English dub.
Right, and this is pretty recent. This theatrical is 2022, and they dubbed it a year later. So, it's your movie. So, give me a brief idea of what did we just watch? And by the way, what did we just watch is... We kept asking ourselves that through the entire thing. Why are you a chair? A cat put a curse on me. Yeah, what did you watch is
that's definitely the question. So this week we watched Suzumae, which is an anime that follows, Suzumae, as she is kind of traveling around Japan attempting to, like, close these doors. She's traveling with her companion, Shota. And at first, they're just kind of like, hi, where are you trying to go? I'm trying to go to the ruins. Okay, then. She points them in the right direction. And as the story progresses, we meet a cat that turns him into a chair. So, the two of them go on a epic journey across Japan attempting to close doors with her with the chair.
Mostly just chasing the cat to turn him into
back into a chair. It's hilarious. Like, and the people in this world, I'll get more into that later, but they are just so aware. Is that a chair running by? They're so incredibly confused. But the story continues on where we get to, like, the climax where...
Well, they're closing these doors because they're gates for this demonic worm to sneak through and destroy the world.
And they're using that as, like, a reasoning behind, like, earthquakes, which is it's just honestly really interesting. I found that interesting that they made that correlation. At some point, Shoto becomes, like, I think they called it, like, the key guardian.
A keystone.
Keystone. And at that point, when he becomes a keystone, me and Dad, we were sitting in there, and we were like, okay, the movie's over. Wait, we still have an hour left? So from there, it's an epic journey for her to rescue him from the spirit world. And it's like, there's so many twists and turns in this, I couldn't even give you a good summary of the plot, if I'm honest.
That's a fair encapsulation. So, actually, the first scene doesn't help you either, because it's Suzumae as a little girl right after a cataclysmic event. And it looks like a post-apocalyptic landscape, which I assumed that, okay, so is that what we're going? Oh, no, is that just a dream? The event where, at that point, she loses her mother. She's raised by her aunt.
Yeah.
More than likely, they're referencing a 2011 tsunami caused by an earthquake, and like the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in Japan.
Oh.
So that's interesting that they're taking a historical event and actually trying to trying to run with that, and then just graft it into reality and into this story. So we've got Suzumae and the mysterious hunky guy that's looking for random places and who gets turned into, the whole, okay, I got turned into a chair, but you know what? And he sees this kid's chair in her room. We had those, though. We had some really nice kids' size furniture made out of wood, a wood table and chairs for you and your sister when you were growing up. So I'm like, I know exactly what I'm looking at.
I mean, like, when you say that, at least the chair that comes to mind is the wooden rocking chair that we had.
I wasn't even thinking of that
dark
one, but
brown.
yeah, that too.
But
that was
like,
Amish country stuff. But I mean, you had the table in your room, and we
had a table in our room.
You and Lydia had a table in your room. We went through two of them. One of them was a folding table, and then one of them was a wood one. And so those chairs, it's just, I know those chairs. And
I remember I think it was like a Crayola. It was like a white foldable table with a red outline where we colored on it. It was gross. I remember hating it because you guys would always make us sit there during holiday dinners and such. I hated that table with every fiber of my being. But I think I kind of know what you're talking about. I remember the table we had at Nana and Papa's house, but I'm afraid I don't know the one you're talking about in our room.
Suzumae meets up with Soda just randomly on the road, and he's looking for old ruins and an old door or something like that. And that's really fascinating. Just the idea of, we don't think about some of the old ruined, abandoned places.
Yeah, we live just by the downtown area, and there's a ton of buildings that are abandoned up there. Literally, we keep saying that one of these days we need to go into the abandoned IHOP building because we were going to film a zombie video around there, but we never got around to it.
That. But I mean, even in there's hidden areas in Cascade Park.
I need to get up to Cascade.
That we could go down to past the rock, up through the stone staircase, or over by where the police station is. If you go over that cliff, there's an old abandoned mill and ruins of that. And but we don't think about those places. Maybe they're interesting to you when you're a teenager or something, but they fade away.
Yeah.
They get lost. There's a moment in in Doctor Who with the Ninth Doctor, and it's one of his last stories. It's the second to last episode, and he's certain he's about to die, and he sends companion Rose back, and he just says, just let the TARDIS sit there on a corner. Nobody's gonna notice it. It'll just be an odd curiosity, and it'll just kind of fade away.
That's sad.
But that's what happens. I mean, if we we don't think about some of those old buildings, some of those old ruins, and they just fade away. They're not special to us. They're only special to somebody else who might come in, looking for a magic door to close.
Yeah.
So she actually follows him, though, and it gets her interest, and she accidentally pulls the current keystone, which turns into a mischievous cat.
Yeah, this cat is both the bane of our existence, but also adorable. There are scenes with this cat at the end, because almost half the movie is them trying to chase down this dang cat. And there are bits and pieces where she's got the cat, and where we got the cat trapped under the chair, and we're like, it wouldn't be so hard for me to squeeze and kill you right now.
And you kind of want her to,
because it talks in you're gonna die, you're gonna live.
Yeah, when the worm falls, the world will break. People will die.
The people will be destroyed.
So happy about it.
It's so cheerful. I hate it.
Sparky, stop grinning, because this is his favorite part. He's just looking at us yes.
Oh my God.
I mean, the difference is this cat actively runs away from people, and Sparky, on the other hand, like runs up to you and demands petting.
Yeah, more like Bugs, who hates everybody.
Yeah, a little bit of that. And it's so interesting, but then at some point as well, a second one gets released. It was fascinating. This little white cat with a black circle on her right eye, and then we've got this giant
black cat with the white circle over its eye. And I like it's yin and yang. So I like that correlation that they stuck there.
There's a lot of that, though. There's a lot of interest. There's more going on than you really notice. When he's talking about, well, okay, so my job is to be a closer. The first thing I was thinking, and I'm not entirely off on this, but I was thinking back to Roger Zelazny's book, One Night in the Lonesome October.
Oh, that's been a long time.
If you've never read this, this is Jack the Ripper and Dracula and Sherlock Holmes and Frankenstein and
talking animals,
witches and talking. Oh yes, the entire thing is read from the perspective, the point of view of Jack the Ripper's dog.
There's literally a scene in this book where it's a graveyard, and
that's my favorite.
People are tossing body parts to each other.
Everybody's like grave robbing one night to get more power, and they're throwing bones. And they're like, "Hey, can I swap you some vertebra for the hand of a dead man?" Oh, it's one of the best things that Zelazny ever wrote, and it's also broken up into 31 chapters, so you can. I actually headed out to the Gothic Book Club at Borders one year, and that's where I got turned on to this. And the person who was running is like, I read this one chapter a day. So every day as October goes through, you actually you're following along with them. So there's openers, those who are trying to open the way for the old ones, for the old gods, small g. And there's closers, those who want to slam the door shut to prevent them. And that basis, that felt like that's what I felt like here.
I haven't read that book in years, so I can't exactly give my 2 cents on that. But no, that's fascinating.
They're kind of doing that. They're not entirely doing that. But there's some of that foundation here. Because it's still, you're trying to slam the door shut against this
giant red worm.
And when we say worm, by the way, it doesn't look like an invertebrate. It's a cloud.
It's like a
red
smoke.
Energy and smoke and cloud, kind of like Galactus in the disappointing Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. It's that.
Okay.
So we say that as we're on. By the time this goes out, you'll know whether or not the new Fantastic Four movie was good or not.
I hope it is good. We're going to go see it in theaters, so you'll see an episode on that, hopefully.
I hope it's good just for an excuse to start wearing the thing again. But I'm not, I don't know. But that's what we're talking about when we talk about this worm. And even though the subtitles say WORM, I can't help but my head is saying WYRM.
Oh.
It's a worm. It's a demonic something from the grease trap of the universe. And Soda's job is to close those doors and keep it from getting out. And every time it tries to get out, if it gets too far, we get an earthquake.
Yeah, I really loved that correlation there.
Like I said, we get an earthquake, or an earthquake big enough to be a tsunami.
Yeah.
I mean, this comes back to, this is why she lost her mother.
Yeah.
I mean, we could make that same parallel with Lilo and Stitch. Like,
oh my God.
Lilo's there feeding Pudge the fish because he controls the weather, because her parents died in a rainstorm.
Maybe nobody fed this country's Pudge the fish.
Worm?
Maybe nobody fed the worm, and maybe that's why he's angry. Maybe he just needs a worm fish sandwich. I don't know. Demonic creatures are weird. But I did want to bring up especially one thing that I absolutely adored about this movie. And I'm going to be going off track here for a second, but this movie feels so alive to me. I don't know if it's like just it. I don't even think it's just like the art style. It's just there's so much happening everywhere around her. It never feels like she's the only like person or the only important character there.
It's a very lived-in world.
It's such a lived-in world. Like just running around, I'm like seeing like promotions. Like when we paused at one point when you went to go refill your drink, there was a guy with an Uber Eats bag on him thing.
Right, and you like immediately looked up at they're going to McDonald's.
Yeah, and it's like there are realistic locations in here. There are characters talking to each other. We were talking about like the way that they were tracking the cat, by the way, was via Instagram.
See, now that's the thing that really stuck out to me, because I have watched a lot of anime, but I've watched it from a different generation. But even now, even in a lot of modern anime, I don't see quite the focus on social media that I do here. I mean, social media is a fundamental part of this story.
Yeah,
because they're tracking the cat.
They're
looking at the chair.
We're like looking at the map. We are like
and like the auntie is tracking Suzamae to make sure,
constantly texting her. She's not answering her phone.
And I mean constantly texting her.
At one point we pause for like when she's babysitting the kids. She looks at her phone. Oh crap, I have 50 messages on my phone. This is not good. But even just like going off that, like the whole idea with like Instagram and all that, it makes this world feel so alive.
It really does. Now, of course, there's also one other thing that bothered you about that, though. Mm-hmm. How is her battery staying charged?
How is her battery staying charged? Her battery dies dramatically towards the end of the movie. But even before that,
only conveniently when it needs to.
Yeah, I mean, I figure she's probably charging her phone, like, off screen or something. But I don't know.
There's an old trope, especially with my father's generation, where, like, if you watch the old black and white westerns, okay, I just watched him shoot his 6-shooter pistol 8 times. How is that working here?
Oh my god.
And the phone battery seems to be the modern equivalent of that.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
We got some other characters in here though too. Can I say how much I really like Grandpa?
Oh.
So
really?
Sona's grandfather is the job of being a closer, it's actually a legacy job. It's handed down. And we get to see Soda's grandfather, who was a closer long before him. He's in the hospital. He's winding down. But I really like this character and this whole, I don't know. He gives a touch to the legacy thing.
You love yourself a good legacy story, though.
I do. And he knows the cat. He
does know the cat.
He knows the cat. And it's like, I'm still not entirely certain what the cat is. I was wondering if he's some sort of a fifth-dimensional imp, an old god, or what.
Yeah, maybe like a deity of some sort.
They don't really give us enough information there.
I mean, like the statue that he turns into kind of reminds me of like the guardian stones you'd see in those Japanese houses. So maybe it's meant to be something like that.
Well, the whole thing is really, really spiritual. It's really obsessed with the barrier between the world of the living and the world of the dead.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting, too, when Soda describes the world of the dead. He describes it as a world where time doesn't mean anything, where all points of time exist at the same place. It's non-linear. We looked at that when we started Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Mm-hmm. But also, you know what, that really jibes with my own personal beliefs as to what an afterlife is, because I think that it's a transition into a completely indescribable state of being that is eternal. It is in all points of time, at all points of time. It's one of the reasons why sometimes prophecy and God's perspective in the Bible gets weird and hard to understand, because there's this thing that exists in all points of time, this non-linear being trying to explain to linear beings of us who exist 1 minute at a time, and it does not compute. I love that they went there.
That's a really interesting point of view.
Go with that.
That's a really interesting point of view there.
Well, and they take advantage of it because Suzamae, we start with Suzamae as a child in the aftermath of that horrible tsunami, losing her mother, and some mysterious figure walks up to her, and that pays off later. As
it turns out that it's her at the end giving the chair back to herself.
Right.
And that's just, I loved that, like, conclusion so much.
There's so much good payoff here, good pacing, good ideas that are floating all around this thing.
We get those, like, flashbacks of her as a child multiple times throughout the film. And it's like, it's not until you have the full picture that you understand everything. And that they did such a good job on that.
I'm just sitting here thinking, is this a dream sequence or is this something more? Does she have a perception that extends? And she does.
Yeah.
Because she got lost in that afterlife world in that for a while as a child.
So when she came out, she had the ability to see those things.
Right. She can see the worms. She can see the door. She was almost providentially, uniquely qualified to be the...
That's true. Huh.
Almost providentially, uniquely qualified to even be the yin to that yang. Because you called out that philosophy's kind of there in the background and working there. And it's like, I'd like to see more of her and Sota.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you're saying she's like I believe it's yang that's the feminine side and yin that's the male side. So
and she is the perfect partner.
Yang. So yeah, they
She's the one who's lifting him up when he needs. She's the one who's filling in at closing those doors when he can't. And he's the one providing her with the
strength,
knowledge, and the strength
to do it,
and even the liturgy that they recite to close that door. It's a genuinely good pairing. It's not just this fluttery cupids and valentines stars in my eyes. No, there's something deeper going on here. I think that is
so cool. Like, I learned a lot about like how the yin and yang works in Chinese philosophy. I learned a lot about that in my world religions course at college, and no, that like matches up. Like, that's fascinating.
The other thing that I really liked here, and I thought was significant, I don't know if you noticed this, but this movie starts very ordinary. Very, okay, I'm at home. Oh, Auntie's making me the cutest bento box.
Oh, it's adorable.
Man, you so should have gone to the bento box panel at ZipCon.
I'm sorry, I was in another panel.
But man, it was just so good when they're talking, because that's where I'm like recognizing she's cutting the fruits into the shapes, and there's 2 pandas in there made out of rice, and it's so cute. But it goes from that and very, very ordinary life. And man, I do not want to ride this bike uphill. Downhill's fine.
No, we were saying that right at the beginning, like, oh yeah, she's just gliding down. Oh, it's gonna suck when she's tired from school and coming up that hill.
Yeah. You know what? There's this abandoned place. I guess that would be kind of mysterious. As we go further into the movie, we sink into a deeper, greater fantasy.
Yeah.
It gets more fantastic as we move along, and we get a break halfway through. But then it plunges us right back into more fantasy, just a greater unknowable story. And I love the fact that it's in that fantasy is intruding into normal life, and it just more and more and more of it until we get to that climax. It is just, it's lights and dragons and guardians and
it's just like all of that, like all of that, like, guardians and the magic, and, like, it all comes into, and it feels like such a natural flow to it.
See, this is the kind of fantasy I like. Fantasy where it's grounded in, like, our normal everyday life. So if I go into Zelazny's Amber, it's just normal urban stuff until he passes over into the parallel world and the true primal earth. It's Harry Potter, where you're living in kind of the suburban nightmare until you pass into the castle. It's the Chronicles of Narnia, which are perfectly normal until you pass through the wardrobe. I like that it's people from our world passing into fantasy, rather than, say, Lord of the Rings, where it's all fantasy all the time. You grew up around swords.
That's really interesting, especially because I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum there. Mm-hmm. I enjoy a good story with it, like, mixed into reality, but I much prefer a full fantasy setting in general.
No, we need to get you into some Dragonlance, and that's where Lord of the Rings kind of also comes into play really well. Maybe Terry Goodkind's Sword of Truth.
Okay.
I should actually look up, because there's a TV show that they made. It's watered down, but it's still that stuff. Those books are like,
I'm
holding my. They're about 6 or 7 inches thick.
How would you even carry that book with you?
Well, they're also like, I mean, they're like a perfect square. My friend Rachel gave me a couple of them, and then I just kept going.
Oh my god!
So this is exactly the sort of fantasy that I like. It's grounded in our world, where the fantastic is intruding into us, intruding into our world, and normal people are just here to cope.
Yeah, they're just here just as confused as the rest of us.
They really are. And that's just by the talking cat and the walking chair.
I mean, you're definitely not wrong. People were just like, is that a chair? And even just like, oh my gosh, when he sleeps, he just goes slack. He just like falls over. And that is the funniest thing ever. I can't even imagine someone seeing that. Literally, he reveals his like identity to the children when she's like babysitting and like, let's go for a ride. And then when Suzamae like goes to ride, he's like, no.
But you know, I thought something was interesting too, because there's certain instinctual things that they run into here as well. As Suzamae is getting ready to go into the final battle, to plunge into the land of the dead, to rescue Sota, I thought it was interesting. She puts on her school uniform.
Yeah.
She puts on the garments she started this all in. She puts on, it's almost a symbol of office. Because the thing is, garments lend you power. They lend you confidence. There's a reason why when I go into the office, I wear a tie. Mm-hmm. Because it's part of, I'm armoring up for battle. I am getting ready to go out, and I want to... The garments just lend you power. Yeah. When I head out to church on Sunday and I'm getting ready to lead worship, there's usually a Superman shirt or something like that. That has not escaped the pastor's notice. Part
he of mentioned
it? Yes. Well, Nate did. So that's one of those things where it's like, okay, this is something you can latch onto and get to know me with, and it'll make me more accessible to you.
No,
it's just that S means something to this family.
Yeah, and I mean, like, wearing your school uniform everywhere is not an unusual thing in Japan. Unlike in the U.S., like, I remember when I was a kid, my mom would yell at me if I wore my, like, uniform in the backyard to play. In Japan, they wear them everywhere. It's part
of the identity.
Yeah, exactly. You don't really wear a lot of regular clothes unless it's not a school day. Mm-hmm. Like, that's everywhere in media.
So to see her kind of gearing up to face down the forces of this starry netherworld, it's just fascinating to see. Also, I need the soundtrack.
Yeah, you were mentioning that, especially with the scene with the worm, I believe. Like
As they get grander and grander, there is some really beautiful music going on here. They're not slacking on any of this. The director's obviously taking some inspiration from Miyazaki. In fact, he name checks him at one point, like one of the towns or something like that. Early on, he does. But even there's a fan theory that at one point we go to an old abandoned amusement park.
Yeah.
There's a fan theory that actually is a reference back to Spirited Away. The idea that in Spirited Away, the father speculates that the spirit town they wander into is actually the theme park that was, built back in the 90s and then abandoned. So the idea is, what if that's the same thing? Because there's definitely some influence here.
So that's like that's such an interesting connection. I want you to send me where you found that link, because I'd love to read more into that. But
I think that's it. That is Suzamae.
And so just before we do end it really quick, I just want to say we totally recommend this to anybody who has Crunchyroll. It's on Crunchyroll, it's on Hulu, it's also on Netflix. So please watch it. It's 2 hours long. It's worth the 2 hours. Trust me. If you've got time to kill, even if you just want to play it in the background, it is worth your time.
Oh, you can't play this in the background. You have to see what's going on.
Well, yeah, that's true. But
but I think it demands your attention too. If you try and play it in the background, it's going to be you look. Come here. Look over here. Look over here.
So yes, please watch it if you have any of those subscriptions. I totally recommend this one. I was blown away by how good this was. So please watch it, and we will see you guys next week for the movie Box of Doom.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.